Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our Sweet Talk podcast. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Jason Batalden. I'm the Assistant Director at Continuing Education and Workforce Training for the College of Technology. And we provide non-credit educational classes and workforce training for our community. This podcast that we're doing today is part of our continuing outreach efforts. And joining us today is Angie Leone. You could say, yeah, go ahead, say hey.
Hello.
Okay, that's enough now. We'll get to you in a minute. This is still us for a second. And we'll be discussing emotional intelligence. Just to let remind our audience and make sure Angie knows, our format today is conversational. And we'll focus on the topic that we're talking today for about 20 minutes. And the clock started when we said welcome. And after 20 minutes, no matter where we are in the conversation, we'll end this and we'll wrap it up. So, Angie, welcome to Sweet Talk.
Thank you for having me.
And please tell us a little bit about yourself and the many things that you're involved with, because there are a lot, I understand.
Yes, so I currently work at ISU in the College of Technology. I'm a resource center coordinator. I also own a new business in town called the Powerhouse. It's an indoor cycling studio. And my husband and I have a consulting company as well, and we work with organizations in the community and outside the community to help them be more effective.
All right on. So, very busy.
Yes.
You mentioned about 3 things I'm interested on, not of which we're talking about yet today, but indoor cycling.
Yes.
What is this?
You just try it right around the room. No, I'm just
No,
kidding.
that's great. On really tiny bikes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We get real small bikes and go around the room real fast.
No, it's just 45-minute classes, and we have 15 bikes, and we really focus on performance.
Oh, okay.
So we'll talk about performance in emotional intelligence, and that's in the workplace, but performance really matters, and having measurement to measure performance is what my husband and I specialize in.
Very good. Very good. And that kind of actually leads, we can actually call that a segue if we want.
Okay.
Because you're here to talk to us today about emotional intelligence. Can you share just a little bit about what that is exactly? What is emotional intelligence?
In essence, it's the ability to manage your emotions effectively, to be able to collaborate with others, and be productive in your environment, in essence.
In essence. And is it geared for a specific, is it for business or just in life in general? I mean, where do you apply emotional intelligence? I mean, how does this work in many different areas, I guess?
I believe it's across all platforms. When someone focuses on improving their emotional intelligence, it's going to help their productivity, their collaboration, their communication skills. And we could talk about the components that emotional intelligence has, which would help people become more easier to work with and more collaborative in nature. So when we talk about emotional intelligence, we have part the internal and the external part, the self and then the others, and then we also have the empathy. So we can talk about little pieces of that as we move forward.
So you said an interesting word just a minute, improve. So the implication there is that maybe we are not born with emotional intelligence, or there are different varyings, different degrees of emotional intelligence. What does this improve? What does that mean, really?
Well, so we are born with a certain set of IQ and EQ, right? So IQ cannot be improved, but emotional intelligence can. You're born with how smart you are. But as we know, as we age, generally, our emotional intelligence kind of increases, right? We get wisdom. And so we don't react the way that we might have when we were 3, throwing a tantrum on the floor, or maybe we still do. I don't know. I'm not saying everybody improves.
It's kind of fun. If you haven't done it since 3, I recommend it. Just try it once.
Yeah.
It's not too bad.
So it's something that you can always continually improve, but the EQ is your emotional quotient. It's a measurement of your emotional intelligence. So there are assessments out there to tell you where you actually are, and then you can work on improving that.
So on the emotional part of this, is this more like how I feel about myself or how I interact with others? I mean, or is it, that's when I have this emotional piece. So emotions are things that they're different than feelings, so
So we all are never going to get away from the fact that we have emotions. We're humans and they follow us. Mm-hmm. And they're coming to work with us regardless of if we want them to or not. Some people will say just leave those emotions at home. it's physically impossible to do that, or we would leave them in a cabinet and lock them away.
Sure.
But the reality is sometimes the people that bring us the biggest conflict are in the workplace, whether it's a coworker, whether it's a boss, whether it's the corporation, the culture,
Right.
whatever. How people feel at work is going to have a direct impact on their performance.
So it kind of goes back though, so we all have feelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So our emotions are kind of how we express those feelings outwardly, is that kind of what this,
Yeah.
so this
How-
emotional intelligence then is our ability to express ourselves intelligently?
And in a way that is more productive.
Oh,
So
okay.
understanding,
Okay, yeah.
so some of the statistics show that, by Daniel Goleman, show that 2/3 of people aren't able to identify their emotions. They don't know how they're feeling, what they're feeling, or why they're feeling it. And so they react to their environment rather than understand, well, I'm feeling this way and this is why they'll just react and they won't wait till the time is right. They'll be hijacked in their emotional state, just like if a bear were chasing them, then they've got the
Sure.
fight or
Right.
flight response.
Right.
And if that bear is at work, or they've got somebody that's constantly bullying them or doing something that's triggering emotion, anxiety and fear are two of the biggest problems in the workplace. And so if they're experiencing those emotions at work, that's going to affect their performance and the way they feel about the organization, as well as their performance goes down.
So what about the bear? You see, you know what I mean? I mean, what about the bear? So if we improve our EQ, I mean, we still are working with the bear though, aren't we?
We are still working with the bear, but we are able to communicate more effectively with them. And if our organization has some training in this area, then there's a common language that everybody can use, and they know tools and they have some idea of this is why, and oh, maybe this person, we have that person that's a bear, that person could have some coaching and development. They're probably unaware of it. Generally, people that have a low EQ are unaware that they have a low emotional intelligence, and everybody else around them is very aware.
Yeah.
Very aware.
Right.
They're aware.
Is that, are you
Right.
bear aware? Right, that's great, that's great. Everyone knows the bear except the bear.
Right. Exactly.
That's true. So how long, EQ itself, is this a relatively new idea, or, how,
No.
where does EQ come from?
The 1990s, it was 1990, Peter Salovey and John Mayer coined the term.
Mm-hmm.
And then the book by Daniel Goleman came out. I read that book probably 8 to 10 years
Okay.
ago. And then I was very intrigued by it. Took some courses at ISU. I had to write a paper on emotional intelligence. So the more I learned about it, the more I was like, well, this really makes sense. I could see how your decisions are based on your emotions. So if you're making poor decisions, then
Right.
there's a chance you can make better decisions by just getting a handle on your emotions. And depending on the background that we have, a lot of people come in with a lot of emotional baggage,
Wow.
right? Especially depending on how they were raised, what's happened in their life, what's going on at
Sure.
home. It's the reality of a lot of the students we have. It's the reality of a lot of people that come to the workplace. They carry a lot of emotional baggage and they just don't know how to deal with it. They don't have the tools or the language to express it, or to even know that they're not unusual.
So was emotional intelligence developed as a clinical therapeutic tool, or was it in this application, because it talks about working with one another? So it's being designed or being used in workplaces, environments, corporations. Was it first designed to be sort of a therapeutic intervention kind of tool, or was it always set to kind of be applied in business?
It was a
environments?
psychology study in the
right,
beginning.
right.
But then they've started studying it over
Oh.
time to see if people's performance, how it's tied to performance and how it's tied to decision making, and a lot of brain sciences went into it, as well as how do you make decisions, and how do they scan the brain and try to figure out how your emotions impact your decision making, and they found that they're very closely tied together.
And then that's where this application into the business world, into that kind of environment made sense, right?
It definitely does, because if it
It's
decreases,
performance-based.
it's performance. If people are losing employees, or
Sure.
or their performance is going down, you know, or they're staying at the job and they're not performing well, that's even worse, you know, so.
So you mentioned earlier you got introduced to this 8 or 10 years ago, and you liked it, intrigued you, kind of found.
And I started working on it on myself, just trying to improve myself. I'm a big proponent of just personal development, and so taking a class where I wrote a paper on it, and then I was in a leadership cohort called the Complete Leader, and Ron Price, the head of that group, was my mentor, and I ended up doing a 14-month cohort where we focused on DISC behavioral assessments and finding out what kind of behavioral style you have, as well as how your emotional intelligence affects you in the workplace and in your personal life. So by going through that cohort, I was like, wow, I've changed so much, and I've seen such fruit in my life, in my work life, in my interpersonal relationships at home, having a teenage daughter, those kinds of things, like the struggles, right? So you being able to understand what your emotional intelligence is, and also where others might be lacking, and giving them a little bit of grace and empathy because you can see where they are.
So, do you mind if I pry?
Sure.
Are you sure?
Yeah, that's what I'm here for.
Because you brought up, well, no, maybe not, right? But I guess you talked about fruit, and then, you know, myself having had a teenage daughter, I don't know what happens to teenage daughters. They disappear, and then they're left with the, you know, and then when they stop being teenagers, they turn wonderful again.
Yeah.
But
I'd like to see their emotional intelligence score.
Yeah, right. Now remember, right? This is for our benefit,
Yeah.
not for the bear.
Right, yeah,
Even
exactly.
if she is our teenage daughter.
Yeah. But I learned how to deal better with that.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was
right?
kind of leading to is you talked about, you saw the fruit in your own life, and I don't want you to, you know, this isn't Oprah, but can you share just a little bit what that fruit kind of looked like for you at least?
Well, I learned how to communicate more effectively with my daughter. I learned that I wasn't as empathetic as I could be. I compared a lot of things, like, well, you don't have it that bad. You know, when I was growing up, I had, you know, this, that, or
Yeah,
the other,
right,
you know.
uphill both ways.
She's not interested in that. She's interested in her struggle right now, in that. And so I changed my behavior and the way I handled it and the way I approached things. And when I changed that, everything changed. And then I'm modeling it now. I'm modeling more and I'm not saying I've completely mastered it. And this week has been like boot camp for emotional intelligence.
Right.
I've been in boot camp.
We won't tell her about this. We
No,
don't want her
not with
listening.
her. Not with her.
Okay.
No, just in my personal life, opening a business, a grand
Right.
opening,
Sure.
things
There you
not
go.
working,
There
you know,
you go.
all that stuff goes, and you have to. It's how you handle those problems, because your emotions get spurred at those times when, you know, you have things going on and stuff's not working or people aren't doing what they're supposed to, but how you handle it is what everybody's watching.
Right.
That's what they see.
Right. So then that's your own kind of personal experience on that level. Now flip it, because I'm assuming you've trained people in EQ. So what kind of experiences have you had on that side of the fence?
Well, I've had a lot of personal coaching with people, and they've found that they've really enjoyed it, because they're just not, the first step is self-awareness, and a lot of times people aren't even aware of the things that they're doing or that they're saying that might be considered, you know, they're not very good for collaboration, or, you know, if you just look on Facebook, you would probably guarantee that you could see some people are very not socially aware of, or, you know, self-aware of what they're posting and things, and how it might affect other people and hurt others. So or driving.
Okay, we're not going to talk about Facebook.
Or driving.
Facebook's a crazy place.
It is.
Isn't it?
Yeah. There's no emotional intelligence. They need a filter.
Well, that could totally get us off topic in the sense of that's insulation that we feel by not having these kind of face-to-face interactions. And then we go on Facebook and
blast it.
yeah, whether it's a filter or not. I mean, what difference does it make if I hurt people's feelings? I don't get to see their face on that.
Right.
So, how long have you been training people in EQ?
It's been about 2 years now.
And how's it going? I mean, obviously you like it.
I love it.
Because you love EQ.
Yeah.
Right.
And I speak on it for free many times, because I want people to get out there and to know about it. I feel like it's the number one thing that you can do to improve yourself and become better and effective at work and in your personal life.
Very cool. And then, so your experience with that has been good. You're training that. So we kind of talked about it. Everyone could benefit from EQ, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
No one's perfect EQ. But is there a Mensa organization for EQ? You know, like, if you have a high, that was a joke.
I
That was a
don't
bad
think so.
joke. You know, sorry.
that I'm
You
aware
know,
of.
I'm
This is
so sorry. So like, you know, if you have a high EQ, you get to join Mensa.
Oh,
and
no,
say,
no,
you know, my wife always reminds me that she could join Mensa if she wants
okay,
to.
okay.
Never mind.
No, I didn't.
Sometimes things just fall. You just gotta let it go. I
It's okay.
apologize about that.
It's okay.
But going back to that, obviously everyone can benefit from
Mm-hmm.
EQ. Corporations, and you kind of hit on what are the things to look for. So things we're looking for are frustration, individual frustration, corporate frustration.
Culture
Culture.
problems, you know, complaining about the culture, when your employees are complaining about that, you know, they might be really upset, and there's a deeper thing that you gotta get into and then start working on helping them work through their emotions that they're facing at work. Maybe they're being bullied by one of the bosses at work and you don't know that.
So what makes people receptive to this, that motivational component of this? You know,
They have to be willing and wanting to learn this. So this isn't something that you would want to impose in the workplace. This is more of something that you would give as an option. And if you had somebody that you were dealing with that maybe that you knew that you were going to have to let them go if things didn't change, you could offer it as we're willing to pay for some training for this if it's something you feel like you are willing to do. But people they have to have the buy-in, and they have to see the value. And if they don't, they may not be the person for your organization. They may need to, you know, move on.
Sometimes
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta get rid of the bear.
Yeah, but sometimes if they're willing and they are unaware, you can improve self-awareness, you can improve empathy, and you can coach and develop that person to become an effective leader.
So someone out there listening to our podcast right now, they're saying this might be something I'm very interested in. How do they get a hold of you?
Well, I'm hoping to be teaching some of these courses through the center in the fall, hopefully.
Through continuing education.
Yes. So I should be in the catalog soon.
Right, I can almost say workforce training.
I
So
can
let me
never
try it.
say soon.
Through ISU Continuing Education Workforce
Workforce training.
Training, you will be teaching these catalogs.
Yes.
Or classes. Our catalog will be coming out this fall. Are you in this fall catalog?
I put in for it. So
Yes,
I-
very good, that's exciting. I'm only the assistant director, I
Okay.
don't know these things, so
Okay.
I'm learning on that. And so that's good, and so they can find you in the catalog. Class, what does a class look like? If I do sign up, if I'm a corporate, is it individual based, the classes you're teaching for us? Is it for individuals or is it for businesses?
We can do both, but the one in the continuing education, we're gonna try to do a hybrid course where people could come 2 times out over 8 weeks, and they'd come at the beginning, they'd have an assessment in the beginning, and then at the end, they would see how they improved over that time. But we'd have some little assignments during the week and some reflective stuff where they could be really working on it. Because to go to some seminar or learn something in one day really doesn't make it effective. You really have to
Right.
continue to practice it.
You have to practice.
Yeah, and so having weekly activities or lessons on it will help implement it and start a new habit.
So how long is the class?
8 weeks.
8 weeks long. Okay, and then if there's someone interested who would say, hey, you know, my business, my corporation, my company could benefit from this, how would they get a hold of you?
Well, they can reach me through you, or they can find me on blackriverpm.com, which is performance management. So our phone number's on there. Just, you know, they can get in contact, because a lot of these things are going to be, you know, individually based. Sometimes it's executive coaching, sometimes it's one employee, sometimes it's organizational, a full workshop, a weekend workshop, team building and emotional intelligence. It could be, you know, a variety of things, ways you could implement it.
So right from the beginning, you're busy. You're involved. You teach for College of Technology, right? You just started the new business. Give me the right name.
The Powerhouse.
The Powerhouse. Thank you. And then you do this as well. And then you and your husband also. What was the other business you guys are involved in? With the group and the marketing or the
Think Big.
Think Big. Okay.
Think Big.
So all these things kind of going on, right? And so staying busy. I guess the question is, I'm kind of curious. I don't want to get off of EQ, but where did that come from you? I mean, you just wake up one day, or has you always been this sort of, have you always had 5 different businesses going on throughout your entire life? And, you know, I mean, like, just heaven forbid, or
No.
is this something, oh my goodness, we got to the good thing. Guess what that is?
It's done.
That's the end. And unfortunately, I have to stop.
Okay.
So I've got my little script here. Angie, thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I hope it was beneficial, and I hope
it
we
was.
had a good time. So
I did.
I hear that our time is up, so I hit the stop button. We want to thanks to Angie Leone for talking with us today, and we hope that you guys got something out of it. I didn't get any questions from the audience today, so usually they blurt in. They didn't today. So you can find us online at cetrain.isu.edu. Please take a few minutes to check out our website, go through our classes, find Angie's class on there and other classes that may be interesting to you. Always let us know what you think. Again, cetrain.isu.edu. Go subscribe to our blog and sign up to receive our newsletter so you get all this interesting information to you. And thanks everyone for joining Sweet Talk. Thank you.